potentially do that, but we'll see what happens there, but that's a new one that's going to be a positive. Now, this is the sleeper. Most people haven't heard this one yet, but it's a Canberra-based issue. Most people get CommSuper pensions when they retire. They're going to value those CommSuper pensions as a lump sum and assess them against the $1.6 million cap on superannuation. Now, don't worry too much, because you'd have to have a $62,000 pension to be assessed at $1 million. Now, so most people don't have that. Most people are coming out about $40,000 to $45,000 pension. So you're not going to get probably DepSecs and DepSecs and secretaries of departments are going to be affected, but there's going to be probably 150 people in Canberra affected by that. But it's not going to be most people in Canberra. Another proposal that's not going ahead, and you may have heard about it, was a $500,000 cap on how much you can put into super of your own money. That's not going to hit. Now, it was put into press that it was going to be a problem, because you're going to have to work out how much you put into super of your own money from 2007. It was going to be a complicated thing. They've dropped it because it's just too hard to work out. The other one they've dropped is a no work test for super contributions over 65. Currently you can put money into super until 65, and they were going to raise it to 74, so you can put money into super and not have to work. But now they've dropped that as well, so it's still 65 to put money into super if you're not working. So they're the major changes. Let's see what happens through the Parliament next week or so. They're putting them through, but they're pretty much guaranteed to go through, because the Labor Party's basically agreed to them. The Labor Party today just said they wanted to tinker with it a little bit, but that's probably not going to go through. So we'll pretty much say they're the only changes. So for people in Canberra, most people are not going to be affected by the age pension assets test. Most people are not going to be affected by the $1.6 million cap on superannuation. And most people can still, the only major one is that most people, if they're putting money into super at $35,000, they've got to tune that back to $25,000 next year. So that's probably the biggest negative, is the contributions to super when you're working back to $25,000. Unless that gets changed in the Parliament, but that's the way it's looking at this present time. So for most of it, it's not going to affect most people, except that $25,000 cap on employer contributions. Yes?
Age pensions will still be assessed, means tested.
On the income
and
statement?
assets.
Yes, that's correct. Yep, that's correct.
And you get the lower of the two.
Lower the two, that's right.
So it is possible that you might be on income at the moment.
Yep.
Change the assets limits, you might finish up on the assets.
Could be, yeah, there could be a little bit of an assets test situation, but most people I've done haven't had a reduction because the assets test has come down. But yeah, that's been the good news for most people. Yeah.
Yeah. Nobody confused about contributions to super.
Yep.
You said, as one stage I thought you said, $25,000 per annum.
If you're working.
If you're working.
Yep. And
or receiving income from any source.
No, it's got to be working.
You've got to be
working 10 hours a week to put money to super over 65.
Okay.
You've got to do the work test here. So, yeah, everyone's understood that?
The 540, this financial year.
Yep, 540 still? Yep.
Yes, so it's still 540 this financial year.
Yep.
And if you wanted to roll forward the 3 years.
Yes, you still get the 3 years this
so
year.
So 180, 180 and 180?
That's 540, yeah, that's right.
So it's not 180 and 100 and...
well, no, it's not this year. As long as you do it before 30 June next year.
Yeah.
That's right. You still get the 540.
Yeah.
If you do it on 1 July next year, you're only limited to 300.
Yeah, okay.
That's right.
What's the asset test for a couple?
Currently,
Yes.
it's $1.1 million in assets outside your home.
So if you've only got 1.1,
Yeah, you still get a bit of an age
able to get even a part pension.
Currently you do, but 1 July next year, no pension.
Why is that?
Sorry, 1 January, sorry, yeah. So basically there's 190,000 people who will fall in that category where they're over the assets test.
Okay.
So they will get nothing, but you've got to remember they weren't getting a lot anyway. They might be getting up to $100 to $200 a fortnight, but it wasn't a huge amount anyway because of the restriction on the taper on the age pension. They weren't getting anywhere near the full age pension. So it's really only top up for most people. And if you've got $1 million in assets outside your home, you should be able to make at least 40, 50,000 a year. So, you know, they're not in destitution street. It's just that they've got to make their money work, and that's our job.
No.
That's good. Sorry, yes.
Yeah, that's 1.6 mil. If
Yep.
you had a defined benefit pension,
Yep.
and you happen to have a big private
I don't
surplus
think that's right.
as well,
Yep.
and so you're over the 1.6,
6. Yep.
and you're over 65.
Yep.
So if you had a private
Self-managed
allocated pension, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, how do you do?
Well, we do is take enough of the allocated pension back to super, so you still can keep it in super. You can have $20 million in super,
Yeah.
but it's just got to be 1.6 million in total comp super pension plus your allocated pension can't be more than 1.6 million.
And like it's not affected by contributions because
No, contributions are not
No,
relevant.
no.
They're just looking at the total amount you can have in allocated pension
Yeah.
because they're losing money on that. Because, as I said, for most people, not only do they not pay tax in it, the tax office is paying them because of the franking credits coming in. So that's where the big drainage. That's where they're seeing a lot of money, being lost. You know, somebody might have, say, $5 million in an allocated pension, paying no tax, and the tax office is paying them. You
If you
know.
had
Not that many people, but there's a percentage.
If you had it not in a self-managed super fund but in a commercial or in
Same rules.
industry, so
Yeah,
it would apply
Same
that
rules
way.
apply, so there's no difference here.
Russell, after you run your pension down after 5 or 10 years, it's well below 1.6. Opportunities for topping up.
Yeah, you can. You can still put money back in if you're if you're over
Every year
65.
you can bring up to 1.6 or every 4 years or what?
Well, you can do it any time you like, but as long as you've got, I'm not sure they're all rules yet. They've still got to be written down. But I think it's going to be assessed every year on 1 July. You're 1.6 million, because market's going up and down all the time, so they can't. You know, if your share market jumps 20% and you're over 1.6 million, they won't. You just can't have it.
But you can't have the pension fund, so you're going to have to roll the whole lot back to accumulation and start a new pension. Or
Yeah.
start a second pension.
That's right.
Yeah,
If
it's
it's
got the
underneath, yeah, they'd have to do that. But there's no cost or no penalties for doing that. But it's just that, yes, you can bring it back up to the 1.6.
Russell,
Yeah.
if the share market takes off and people with, say, an industry fund with superannuation, and the value of it goes up,
Hmm.
when does Social Security decide that the pension's going to be cut off or reduced?
Well, you're supposed to tell them. Theoretically, whenever there's a $3,000 to $5,000 change in your assets, you're supposed to tell them. But they know that investments are going up and down all the time, so they're really. What will happen is that Centrelink will know when the markets are going up, so they'll probably ask for a lot more reviews of your situation because they know what your assets are in. So if the share market jumps 20%, you'll probably find that they'll send out a review letter to you, ask you to put down your assets and incomes again.
And what if it goes down? Do they,
Well, it's up to you to tell them.
do they increase the pension?
No, you've got to tell them. It's up to you. You're being paid by the government, so your liability, your responsibility is to tell them what your assets and income.
And you tell
They
them
don't
by
tell them,
getting
Russell. Takes them 2 years to catch up with you.
Well, that's the theory, but you don't want to. People have been required to pay back pay if you tell them that you're overpaid. That's okay, but if they find out from you, they'll then want you to back pay. So they're getting tougher on that now than they used to. But your responsibility is to inform them of any major change in your assets and income.
So, and you do that by getting a certificate from your fund.
Yeah, just
I've
about
forgotten what it's called.
Centrelink schedule.
That's right.
Yeah, that's right. So, yeah, I mean, the governments are running out of money. We know that. So they're going to get tougher on this over time. And I've recently noticed there's a few people, my clients have had to pay back. One was just on the health card, where they were getting concessions on their pharmaceuticals. they went over the threshold of income, and they then asked them to back pay 18 months of Medicare. You know, they only pay $6.40 for a prescription. That they then have to make up the balance and pay that back. So, so they're getting tougher on that sort of thing, and of course, there's a lot more data sharing happening now. The tax office has a lot more information coming into it, and the data sharing is happening between departments. So, you know, they're going to get a lot more information on you now from on what's happening. And at the end of the day, the government's paying you money. If you know, it's your responsibility to do the right thing. So yeah, that's it, Bob.
So Russell, the ComSuper people on defined benefit pensions are actually worse off than the people with industry pensions because a lot of those are untaxed or partly untaxed.
That's right. Yeah. Well, that's right. I mean, your ComSuper pensions, yeah. Most people are paying around about 10% income tax on their ComSuper pension, whereas if you had an allocated pension, you'd be paying 0%. But you've got to remember that the ComSuper pension, you've got the full value of your employer benefit, whereas most people lost 15% as it went into the employer super. So when they're paying 9.5% super, you don't see 9.5% go in your fund because you're taking 15% off. So that's why they should have, well, that's why they made them tax-free anyway. Whereas the ComSuper people will get the full benefit of, and only get a 10% rebate.
Plus it's index.
Yeah, plus index, government guarantee, goes for life, yeah, 2,000 spouse, yeah. Just wonderful, yeah. Get one of those, Bob, yeah. Get two. Yeah. Marry someone rich.
Like this one.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so I think covered most of the topics today, so hopefully you got some information, but for most people it's not going to change, but yes, there's a few little curly ones in there.
Thanks, Russell.